Lawrence in the house. How are we all doing today? We're doing good? How are we doing today? There you go. There's the spirit. Lawrence, it is a beautiful day. To Pat and to everybody that organized the weather, I said, hey, whomever you worked with to ensure that we had this weather, make sure that you work with them to secure the election. Because it is perfect. For those of you who I have not had the pleasure to meet just yet, my name is Michelle de la Isla. I don't have a cute way of saying it like Dr. Bollier. I think it's adorable what she shares. So I'm sorry, that's why my signs say Michelle, because that's easy. It's like, yeah, Michelle. A little bit about me before, so that you know the human that is speaking with you today. I was born in New York, and I was raised in Puerto Rico. My grandparents had a significant part of my upbringing. They taught me the value of hard work. I will never forget my grandpa working a third shift job in una factoría, which is a little factory, and he was a little guard. And then he would come home in the morning. Mama was making breakfast and coffee. Coffee is a huge part of my life. And then Mima would drive me and Mama to take Mama to work at Jasmine, which was the retail store that she used to work in. And then he would stay home watching me. And I'll never forget that saint of a man, just like passing out. And like, but you know what? But he was there to take care of me. And that right there is the first example of selfless sacrifice that was put into my heart and into my brain of what it means to take care of people. You break yourself, you do as much as you can do to give love to the people that matter to you. And I use the word love, and I'm not using it lightly, because the good Lord knows, whichever Lord, whether you call it earth, whether you have no, whether you call it Allah, whether you call it whatever, that we need some love. This country has lost its way. But I have hope because you're here. Not that you're here for me. I have hope because I know and I can infer what you stand for. My life was not easy. I am obviously not the demographic of a politician in the state of Kansas, especially not one that's running for Congress, right? And even though I may, kind of dance with a little bit of gusto, right? It doesn't mean that I cannot, get down and just, do an electric slide and dance to some country if I needed to. In the end, that doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that we're all human. And whereas all of you have a life story that I am certain is not perfect, most of the individuals that we end up sending to Congress, to the Senate, and to represent us across the country, in a big majority do not share your life challenges. I will never forget couch surfing and trying to figure out where my next meal was going to come from. And just as well, I will not forget that. I will not forget the hands of the people that made food for me and took care of me. I will never forget coming to Kansas with a kid and having just people come alongside me and love me and my son and help me get my degree in molecular biology, which I use every day. I will not forget coming to Topeka, a battered wife, and not knowing that I had a voice, and finding the YWCA. And people like Mama Jo, who took care of me when I had one of my first reoccurrences of that disgusting C word. Or Kim, who is still my sister, who held my hair back after I'd come back from surgery, throwing up and being sick. I will not forget the people who helped me find employment. I will not forget the people who I counseled at Housing and Credit Counseling, trying to figure out their budget Not because they had credit card debt that had gone crazy. It happens, but it's not the majority. But because they were trying to figure out how to take care of their health. In the richest country in the world. I will not forget. I will not forget the families that came through our offices talking about how they were going to lose their home. I will not forget that the education that I received and that my daughter is receiving in the public school system, because I did not get to go to public school for too long in Puerto Rico. My family all kind of like put together so I could go to a private school, but my daughter is a product of public school. And that education taught her diversity. That education taught her inclusion. That education taught her that she could nurture her mind to be whomever she could be. We cannot forget. We cannot forget that when this country was started and when this country was built, it was built on the ideals of bringing liberty for everyone. However, in that process of beautiful desire, because we're people and we're broken and we're human, we desecrated the Native Americans that took care of this land. We stopped in Africa and picked up my great-great-grandmother to be a slave. And on the backs of the people that were here and were brought here against their will, we built this country. And it's okay to understand that history. It doesn't make you responsible for the past. But it makes you responsible to understand that there's systems that we need to break. That there's systems, that there's poverty, that there's a reason that there's poverty. There's a reason. We have to come back to the values of being able to ask why. Why is it that most neighborhoods that are impoverished have minorities? Why is it that most neighborhoods that are most in need for their kids to have early childhood education are not receiving it? Why is it? Why is it that the poverty continues to ensue? Why is it that when COVID came, out of the 210 plus counting souls that we've lost, most of them have been minorities. Most of them have been people that have not had protection for their pre-existing conditions. Why is this happening today? 2020. It's happening because people forget. It's happening because sometimes our leadership does not share our struggles. It's happening because all too often we end up electing people based on the letter rather than seeing the content of their character. It happens because we have stopped talking about politics. We have stopped talking about the things that make us a country. We have refused to acknowledge our broken, gory history so that we can move forward together towards a more perfect union. My friends, 2020 is a big year. And because I have lived what many of you are living through, I will not forget when I'm in Congress. I will stand up for you. And we will not always agree, and it's okay. Because I will not look at you and smile at you and say, I agree with you, and then turn around and do something opposite. The main reason that I decided to run for Congress was because as mayor of the city of Topeka, no matter how much work we were doing in economic development, families were still falling in the gap of health access. And I would have people talk to me about, well, what are we doing about affordable housing? What are we doing about healthcare? What are we doing about all these things that matter? What are we doing about infrastructure? Why aren't we doing more in infrastructure? Why are kids in our urban core having the same struggle as kids in the rural community of not having access to broadband? In the urban core, because we can't afford it. In the rural community, because it wasn't cost effective to extend those lines. People forget that policy decisions are not policy decisions. Every single policy decision impacts a life. And I will not forget. Our farmers are struggling. the most important part of our GDP is our farmers. It takes up a vast amount of our land. Yet our leadership decided to have an argument with one of our biggest distributors. I'm not saying that they're great. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that when we're doing things and when we're making policies, we have to think of the people that we're impacting. And right now, our farmers are not able to sell their crops for a profit. And I'm wondering, how many times have our farmers been approached and asked, what do you need? What do you need? Not giving them Band-Aids, because the Band-Aids don't work. We need to be concerned about our planet. You want to talk about environment? You know what? Talk to a farmer that had to deal last year with all the floods that they had. Talk to a farmer that this year was saying, we haven't had rain. And the soybeans need rain. Again, we just had one rain just recently. Talk about our farmers of the things that they need. Don't give them Band-Aids. Our farmers don't want handouts. Our farmers want to get to work. Just like most of the American people. This whole rhetoric of stimulus packets and not wanting to give people support. You want me to tell you? Before here, I came from meeting with a group of business owners in Leavenworth. And they said, you know, Michelle, we want to see when you get to Congress, we need to have a passing of a stimulus for people. Because when people received that stimulus, our businesses all started to thrive. We saw the best numbers that we have seen in our economy. We have to start moving away from the narrative that we're giving people handouts. There's a virus that they did not create that is killing people and displacing people. We have to put politics aside and work for the people who elect us. So my promise to you is that I will not forget who elected me. I will not take a cent of corporate funds to fuel this election. This election is fueled by all of you, because I respond to all of you. And I vow as well to support H.R. 1 so that we could get rid of the dark money in politics. Yes, we need to. It makes it almost impossible for people that have a good heart and desire to run for office if you already have things stacked against you because your friends are able to call a corporation and get a super PAC form that just starts funneling money to them. And they're not even having to be transparent about it. Kansas, I will not forget. And you, when I'm in Congress, will be with me every step of the way. And not only that, I will come back home. I have 2 kids. One of them graduates in May, but I have one that's got 2 more years. And this is home to us. I wouldn't change Kansas. I will not forget. But I need you all to stand up. Stand up with me, because I am only as powerful as every one of you who advocates. I am only as powerful as the young women that I met that are not able to vote, that are still trying to figure out how they're going to get people registered. I am only as powerful as you talking to your Republican brothers and sisters and telling your Republican brothers and sisters it's okay to vote outside and color outside of the party line. We have to stop voting for the axe just because the forest sees that the axe has the handle made of the same material as the trees. And start looking around and noticing that the forest is disappearing. I am only as strong as you all are, standing up alongside me, engaging people to vote, engaging people to understand the issues, telling people not to be blindsided by the 2 issues that our friends are telling us that are important when they have nothing to do with Congress. We have to stop being blindsided by the things that are ideals that people want to shove down our throat and start talking about the things that we talk about in the kitchen table. So Lawrence, if I say fired up, I want you guys to say and let me know if you are ready to vote. Yeah! Lawrence, are we fired up? Yeah! Fired up, ready to vote. Fired up? Yeah! Fired up? Yeah! We're ready. ready to vote, Lawrence. Let's make history in Kansas. All of these women are here to represent you. All of these women are here to ensure your health care. All of these women are here to ensure that our farmers are treated equitably. All of these women are going to preserve our environment. It is time for us to get fired up and ready to vote. And I will now take your questions.